Welcome to the Bibles and Beer Show.
The importance of athletics in youth. I didn't get really into wrestling until I think Will was in his 7th grade year. He wrestled a little bit when he was younger in the USA Wrestling when he was 6 and 7, and I didn't know anything, and I kind of coached him and probably coached him into some bad spots, and we didn't really have that good of a time. And I really thought that maybe that was going to be it for his wrestling career. And then when he went into 7th grade, he decided to want to wrestle for middle school, which I thought was awesome. And he really took to it and loved it and loves the sport. And he's not your everyday stud that when he steps on the mat he's going to win. Will's going to he's going to give a match, whether he wins or loses. It's going to be a match. He really has fell in love with that, and it's bled down to Caleb, my middle schooler, and he loves it so much now, and he's had a lot of good success with it. And the thing that I love about it is see if I can put this into words that kind of make sense, because it makes sense in my head. But with wrestling in particular, but really any youth athletics, is you're putting kids under pressure. You're putting them in a period or in a time where the anxiety's really high, their nerves are really high, and they have to perform whatever task they've been trained to do, whether in your case would be wrestling. And I think that is the ultimate performance, because there's no playbook involved. You don't run a reverse sweep or nothing like that. You're out there, and it is what it is.
There's no choreography
on your own.
It's not choreographed. It's not anything. And the confidence that I've seen in my two when they come through is just, as a dad, it's so overwhelming, because you get comfortable to know that you can do this now as a kid or as a teenager. You can perform when the chips are down, when it's when you need that extra point to win, or you're on a big stage. And the biggest stage that Will has wrestled was the sectionals, and and it's like
and he's in a tough weight class too.
Yeah, he's in a tough weight class. Some tough kids. And to get out there and knowing you're wrestling a 2-time state champion like Hunter Adams was from North Hall, and knowing that in the back of your mind he's already signed a full ride to Appalachian State, and all this in your mind, but you go out there anyway and you give it your best, and you take a shot and stuff like that. And it gives you that confidence as a dad or as a parent to know that, hey, when you get older and the chips are down and something happens and you have to perform, you're at least going to have the mental fortitude to do it. And I owe a lot of that to wrestling, and really you, Coach, because you've really coached them a lot. Just about their whole time coming up, except for the couple of years that I coached them in USA. But
and it fully depends on your abilities. You can't blame it on a teammate. Yeah. You can't use a cop-out. You find out where your weak points are and where your strong points are.
There was a bad rap, about, you're not going to be able to start in this particular sport because you don't give enough money, or you're not going to be able to do this because you're not this, or your parents are not this, or you're not that.
You don't have this name. Or
you don't have this name. In wrestling, you don't have that, because on Mondays, correct me if I'm wrong, Coach, if you want to start for the next tournament or match, you got to call out the starter, and you got to beat the starter, and you get 2 out of 3 chances to do it.
Absolutely.
So, as Ric Flair always says, you want to be the man, you got to beat the man. And I absolutely love that, because it's just you and the other kid, and if you want it bad enough, that's it.
Real quick, let me touch on that one time too. Maggie wrestled last year, and she was so upset. She breaks her hand, her wrist, whatever. And it affects her from volleyball. Well, of my 3 kids, her being the only girl, she wants to play every sport she can. One thing I've seen with wrestling, and I know it can be the same way, but when she goes out on the football field to throw the football with the guys, they all, well, you're a girl. And then she throws the football, and they're like, wow. And then she catches a football, and they're like, "You're not scared of catching it?" She's like, "No." She goes out on a baseball field because she played softball. She can hit, but they don't want to give her the chance. But she said when she would go to practice for wrestling, she would get out there with Caleb, Jason's youngest, and he wouldn't go easy on her. And I told her, I said, well, you kind of use as much strength as it takes. So if you're giving it to him, he's got to give it right back. She goes, well, that's what I loved about wrestling is they didn't take it easy on me. They didn't treat me like I was a girl. I wanted to wrestle and I wanted to grapple. And she said they went full on with me. And so I think that helped her a lot in sports to understand that you got to put 110% into practice.
You guys hit on a bunch of really good themes that I feel very strongly on with wrestling. It's like when you look at soldiers, not that I'm comparing wrestling to being a soldier at all. It's not life or death or anything, and that's not at all what I'm doing. But a soldier can shoot at a target very easily, and be a expert marksman. And then when somebody starts shooting back, can that soldier stay calm enough, relaxed enough to revert back to training, stay focused, and hit that target still?
Coming from being a police officer, we started using simunition rounds for that reason. How are you actually going to react when something's
when your
back?
adrenaline's firing at all levels?
Yeah,
can you calm down?
Sitting on a static firing line, shooting. It's there, and
right.
It's there in your face, and you're 100% right on that, Coach. It changes the whole dynamics of everything. Where you may be an expert marksman with 2 feet on the ground, fully extended. But when you're backing up with one hand coming up, trying to cover something, and you're trying to shoot from the hip, it's totally different.
And knowing that failure is probably going to be your life, know, and not that wrestling is a life or death thing, but when you got guys that have trained in the room and they've done this or that, and then now I'm going to throw you up against this monster who may or may not have a tattoo or has big shoulders or wins the singlet contest, and now you've got to perform all that crap that we've been working on in practice. Can you be calm enough to tactically apply these moves to this person? And then it comes down to how confident are you that that's going to work? Because your confidence is everything on whether something is going to fight through. And then if it doesn't, how you recover? What are you going to do from there?
Yep.
And it builds a mindset that, it's what I've started asking kids now is, will you quit? Well, I don't know. I don't know if I like it. It's not about if you like it or not. Is there something that is going to make you quit? Is it going to break you to where you can say, we find an excuse. Oh, well, I just don't. It's not as fun as it used to be. It's not this or that. Can you get into the idea that nothing breaks me, nothing stops me? Yeah. And sadly, back in the day, kids would invest enough in sports that you could build that mindset. And lately, you don't keep a kid that long. They usually quit before. Mm-hmm. And so now you almost have to reveal that mindset. And do they have it kinda? And if you see that little spark of that mindset and you can build on that, then you have to build on that. And then you build them into I don't quit. I may not win every time. I may not be the best on the team. I may not be able to hit all these moves, but I don't quit. Whatever's going to happen, I don't quit. And from that mindset, you get an elitist attitude. I know you quit, so I don't hang out with you. You don't belong with me. You're not of the same cloth. You're not of the same material because you quit. So I don't care. I mean, I may lose, but I'm not quitting. And then when you get that elitist attitude, then now all you want to be around is your mindset. That person that, and whether you're a guy or a girl, do you have that mindset? You have that mindset, then we're doing this. And your daughter got hurt. How many? I mean, it wasn't just a broken hand. I mean, she got hurt 4 or 5 times and
still
at practice.
To wrestle with the
still at practice, still coming in, still wanting to go. Yeah. We're having to pull her off the mat. And how often do you have that happen? How often do you have to tell an athlete, look, you're not going today because you're going to hurt yourself worse? Yeah. Most times it's coach, I think I pulled something, or I got a blister, or man, coach, I got to take some time, man.
I sprained my pinky.
Yes.
Can't do it.
Can't go. I mean, you want the athletes to get that mindset that whether they think they can win or lose, they know that they're the best person to be in that spot. You know, and they get that mindset. And so then those mindsets together, you're going to build a great program. But you don't find 100 of those mindsets right away.
Yeah.
You find 4 or 5 of them, and then you keep trying to add. And once you have that, then you have some examples that guys can start to follow, and they jump in, and then you build from there. You need that mindset. You know, I love wrestling because beyond just the fact that, you know, I enjoy the sport, I did well at sport, I think that's my legacy as I put kids out into society, you know, because that mindset is only a good thing, you know.
For everything. It
is.
Yeah.
And I was, a good friend of mine is one of the top FCA reps in the state. A guy named Brian Morgan. He was my FCA rep when I was at Noonan, and he and I went to Morgantown, West Virginia, to WVU. He also was up at school in that area, so we knew a lot of people in a lot of the same places. And you know, he was in sales, and he turned to FCA because it wasn't as satisfying anymore. And when I first got down there, he says, "Well, what's your goal here?" And I told him, I said, "I want to teach these kids how to lose," which kind of threw him out. We're not coming down to lose here, coach. But kids don't know how to lose anymore. Mm-hmm. They just don't. We vilified losing so badly.
Here's a trophy for participating.
Yeah. I mean, we can't be disappointed. We can't have our hurt feelings. We can't, you know, we don't lose. We don't, you know, losing and failure, it's not a bad thing. Yeah. We only get better from losing and failing. We improve. What our problem is now we vilified losing and failing so badly. Now we just don't compete. Mm-hmm. Hey, I didn't lose. I just didn't wrestle. I didn't, you know, fail. I just didn't do it. I just didn't want to do it anymore. I'm gonna go find something that I can do well, and then I don't have that problem. I mean, kids these days, they want immediate gratification. You know, I mean, when we were kids, we wrote a letter, and you waited around a week or two to get a letter back. And
you're right.
Would these kids do that? Oh, hell no. They send an email and they expect an email back. They send a text. You better text back and not leave it on unopened or whatever else. They get all irritable. So in wrestling, I mean, you're trying to convince a kid, hey, you're going to get your butt kicked for a year or two maybe, and then you're going to start doing the butt kicking. Yeah, I don't want to do that. That's not my thing.
They start seeing that mindset of those leaders too, and they're like, man, I need to step up because
and hopefully they
I'm
do.
at the same place he used to be. I should be able to be at that, you know.
But that's if you can get them at that. But that's if you can get them to invest in that, and so often you can't, you know. And like with a younger program, you're having to put guys in situations where they're going to get beat on, and they don't see as a little, you know, if they can do their JV or their 9th grade matches and they can get a little bit of success, and then get beat on a little bit on the varsity level, then they still know that they can do it.
Right.
But if they're having to fill in a starting spot all the time, they're getting that beating. You can end up burning somebody out. I mean, it's just tough because, again, the mindset's not there anymore.
You know, one match, one duel that we had in particular that I just remember this past season, you know, with Will wrestling 182. Will's always been a light for his weight class, so he may have weighed, honestly, 173 that day. But, you know, 182, and then you guys needed a 220. And, of course, you know,
let's talk about that.
he's not going to let anybody down, so he's going to step up. And I was at home with the baby that night, so I wasn't there to see it, but people were sending me videos and the monsters that he was wrestling. And he would step out there, and you're just looking at the other kid. I'm looking at the video, and you're looking at the other kid, and you're like, oh, buddy, try your best.
This is how I knew that we were just revealing the mindset, is because we had a lot of kids that would be, you know, if they knew that, you know, because I bump, I tell them, we're going to do what's best for the team. You're a soldier. You fight the battle that we tell you to fight, win or lose. And sometimes it's just a hope that you don't lose that bad.
Or get injured, yeah.
Exactly. So I had several guys that I would bump, and you could tell the ones that were really irritable about it. Are you going to do this again, coach? You know, we'll come up, coach, where you want me? What mat? What weight? And they would be like, well, I need I need this. All right. Not a complaint, not a sigh, not a anything. Okay, that's what it is. And he'd go, put his headgear on, he'd be ready to go, and he'd walk out, and whatever happened, he'd come back off, and the next match, hey, coach, where do you want me?
We wrestled a big national tournament his 7th grade year, or maybe 8th grade year. I think it was at North Atlanta, and there was kids from all over the nation. I mean, this was one of the battle for the belt, big tournament. And he wrestles this kid from like Nebraska or somewhere like that. And the kid walks out. He looks like Matt Hughes' twin brother at 14, and he is absolutely ripped. And he gets out there, and I look at my poor Will, who's like a Labrador puppy at the time, and I'm like, oh man. And Will looks at me for advice because I'm using air quotes. I'm the coach. And I'm just like, do your best, buddy. and that's really all I had. And the kid was, you can tell the kid was so graceful in everything he did, so super smooth. He allowed Will to wrestle because he knew as soon as he tied up that Will was not on the same class as him.
Yeah.
He allowed Will to wrestle, and he allowed Will to go around or round and a half with him before he dunked him on his head and pinned him. But man, the kid was so classy. He jumps up, and he runs over there, and he shakes my hand. Hey, coach, man, I appreciate you letting me be out here and wrestle your guy. And I'm like, hey, dude, I appreciate you not killing my kid, And that split second, I think that's really what sold me to wrestling. Just as good as that kid was, and I wish I could remember his name to save my life. As good as that kid was, there was zero ego. He allowed Will to run moves and allowed Will to score some points, but he knew in the back of his head, I could beat this kid any time. But he allowed Will to work, and to me, I always admired. And I wish if this podcast ever goes national and he ever remembers who he is or remembers my kid, I hope he does it because that's what it instantly turned me on because you see all these with sports, you see all these egos and stuff like this, and you've got this one kid he had to be 14 because we were in a 14 age group, and who was, I would say, hands down the best that I've ever seen at that age. And to act like that to a kid that just really was just starting out, and just as good as he was and as classy as he was. And I always admired that. And that's where I had an instant turn on for wrestling, just like that. Yeah. To me, that right there, that one little instant, I was turned on. I was like, man, this is where it's at. And I tell that story all the time to anybody who would listen because it's awesome. So,
Hayden and Colby, when we signed them up for football that first year, Colby, after about 10 minutes and getting blindsided running a slant, he comes running over, and he's got sweat dripping off, and he's got tears running and everything. He's like, Dad, I'm sorry you tackled me. I'm sorry. I said, it's okay, buddy. Do you like band or art, maybe? Just joking around and everything. He's a comedian, but you talked about the different people that you wrestled through your career, and we talked a little bit about your dad. Was he kind of the push for you wrestling, or did he want you to wrestle since he came from it? How did that come about?
Well, and
because you have two brothers as well,
I do,
right? You're the middle.
Yes.
Okay.
Only way I can say it with cleanly is wrestling sucks.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much that is brutal about wrestling, but as you were saying, it's an honorable sport.
Very.
And that's the only way to describe how that guy competed against Will. It's honorable, at least the ones that are true wrestling mindsets. And my dad and I talk wrestling all the time. We talk every day. We talked one time. Was talk about when you run into somebody that has a wrestling background, and when you meet them, they're going to say one of two things. They're going to say that I'm a wrestler. Even though they may not have wrestled a match in 30 years, they're going to say I'm a wrestler, or they're going to say I wrestled. Now the guys that say I'm a wrestler, they have that mindset. They've bought in. That is who they are. The mindset, the drive, the integrity, the honor, all of it. That embodies them. And so even years after they've not even stepped on a mat, they still identify as a wrestler because that's who they were,
Right.
and that's who they still are.
And they had that passion.
Exactly. And then you got those that wrestle.
Yeah, that was
You know,
me.
they never truly, got to the point where they embodied that mindset or they truly identified in that area. And so then, that's how they speak. And my father was a wrestler, but he also understood the challenges of it and the disappointments of it and the heavy weight of it. And so he didn't push us at all. Like, as a matter of fact, probably kept us away from it. More for the fact that I think we were just irritating little kids and he didn't want us to his practices. But no, I'm just kidding.